things I learned the hard way, and I've seen a lot of people in my space also make the same mistakes, is not niching down. I think we all have the best of intentions. We want to help everybody everywhere. But if we can't niche down, then we're not going to be specific as to what pain points that we can help solve. So I resisted that for a really long time. I was leaders at large I could help. And I've realized that the more I can niche down and be super specific, the more excited I get to show up for my clients, the more value I see my clients put on our coaching container, the more serious they take it. And it's just easier to market to people when I'm very, very specific as to who those people are.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. Before Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7 and 8 figure career coaching businesses myself and consulted with 2 career coaching businesses that are now doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or just building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Regan, and today's guest is Aleta Maxwell. She is the founder and CEO of Uplifting Leadership and trusted coach to high-achieving executives navigating the challenges of leadership. Aleta brings over decades of experience as a CHRO or Chief Human Resource Officer, organizational consultant, and certified coach with a track record of scaling businesses and empowering leaders to lead with clarity and confidence. She's an expert in tackling imposter syndrome, time management, and communication, and she's the best-selling author of Uplifting Leaders, How to Have Difficult Conversations That Motivate and Inspire. Aleta's work focuses on helping female executives build aligned, high-performing teams without burning out, and on transforming how leaders communicate, set expectations, and hold people accountable. And it's a pleasure for me to have her on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Aleta.
Thank you so much for having me today.
It's a pleasure for us. So wanted to ask you how this all got started. So what inspired you to become a coach and then start your own coaching business?
Yeah. So previous to this role, I was in the CHRO role. I was Chief Human Resource Officer of a restaurant group here in New York City. I came on board when they had 3 locations, and the goal was to build to sell. So that's what we spent the next 8 years doing, is that we built our company to 22 locations and eventually ended up selling at the beginning of 2020. But throughout that time, I realized that so many of the leaders that we had in position were really great at the thing, whatever that thing was, but they really hadn't had their leadership or communication skill set built out. And so that's what I really dove into. Once we sold the company, I was able to write my book. I was able to develop some online courses and utilize my certification in coaching, but really digging into why are some leaders more successful than others? And specifically with female leaders, why are they typically becoming their own obstacle? Imposter syndrome, setting expectations, holding people accountable. These are the things that I tend to focus on because these tend to be the obstacles for further promotions and getting the pay and the raise that they deserve.
And when it comes to like you running your own coaching business or uplifting leadership, it's been about 5 years and a half, right?
Yeah. Beginning of 2020, I was able to start it.
Cool. And so throughout this journey, like which part of your coaching journey would you say that you find the most rewarding since you started your coaching business?
I love being in a coaching container with my coach partner and seeing those aha moments, seeing those light bulb moments where what we're talking about clicks and they see that they don't have to work harder, that they just have to be smarter and more intentional with how they communicate. Those are the moments that I really feel joy and aligned with my passion.
And I also want to dive into like how this all works. So your programs, people that you typically work with, although we mentioned it a little bit in the intro, is there like a specific industry where these leaders are focused on, a specific demographic, or is it broad? And then how does the transformation look like for them? So how do your programs work?
Yeah, so I have a couple different programs. I have a mastermind that's a little bit bigger of a community where the community aspect comes a lot more into play. I have an exclusive, which is limited to how many people are in this group. And there's a lot more personalized focus on each individual. And then my one-on-one coaching programs, where I really see leaders excel the most because it's very customized, personalized coaching. Where I found the most success is with female leaders, those female leaders that are in position. They've done all the hard work to get there, but now they kind of feel stuck. They're feeling a little frustrated maybe because they're having the same conversations over and over again. They're feeling worn out and just completely stretched because oftentimes I hear that they are having to do the thing themselves or having to clean up people's messes and do it themselves. So really how they develop out, how they build people's skill sets so they can delegate is often something that we focus on as well. But senior executives and senior leaders, we really need to grow the competencies because we need these women at the table. They deserve to be at the table, but there's often something that is holding them back. And that's really what we dive into together.
And what's holding them back on a tactical level, or is there like some strategy, or is it also like just the team, like you mentioned, just maybe training the team? What is usually holding these leaders back?
I find there's a couple things. That imposter syndrome is huge. Second guessing ourselves, not understanding how much value we bring to the table is a huge obstacle for us. However, I'm also seeing that we tend to believe that there's common sense at play. So we don't gain clarity around some of our assumptions. I'll give you an example. I had a client that was really, really frustrated because she was sending out Slack messages and somebody on her team was taking hours to respond back. And these were pretty critical, urgent issues. And so I asked her, have you ever questioned with this individual how quick your expectations should be on turnaround time? Have you ever talked through what you need from them and maybe how they view utilizing Slack? And she sat there looking at me and she goes, no, I just assume that everybody's looking at Slack as often as they can. And so that conversation uncovered that he was utilizing Slack very differently than how she assumed it was being utilized. So when we take those assumptions off the table, we gain clarity as to what do I need? What do you need as my employee? And how can we align so we're each getting what we need and successful? That's when I see a lot of that frustration come down. That's when I see my clients feeling like they're no longer herding cats, if you will, and they can spend more time and focus on their work so they can get that promotion and get that raise.
And you mentioned the mastermind, an exclusive program, and there's also the one-on-one, right?
Yes.
What is the difference between exclusive and one-on-one?
The exclusive community is 8 people in a group. So there's 8 different leaders in the group. We do a lot of one-on-one coaching, but there's also best practice sharing and a small community element. The one-on-one coaching is strictly one-on-one. It's access to me on a one-on-one basis. We dig into what's come up. I come into every coaching meeting with an agenda, questions I want to get curious about. But whatever the client is dealing with at this moment, we're going to tackle first. And then we're going to get to the overarching goals.
I see. So basically it's a smaller group than the mastermind.
Yes, more personalized attention.
And how many are in the mastermind, if you don't mind?
We have 20 in the mastermind. So it's a little bit of a bigger group.
Okay, I see. That's great. Awesome. And how long does it take, the program? How long does it last? Let's say, or is not time limited?
Yeah. So with the exclusive and the mastermind, it's a year-long engagement. We have drip learning that happens throughout the year. So we're focused on specific topics every month of the year. My one-on-one coaching engagements typically start at a 6-month container. We typically are committed to working together for 6 months or 12 sessions. Often my clients continue on. They see themselves reaching their goals and they set new goals that they want to tackle. So most of my clients do continue on past that 6 months, but that's the start of our engagement.
Cool. And while we are the clients, where do you find the clients? What marketing channel is working best for you?
Well, I've been very fortunate that the majority of my clients have come to me through warm referrals, people that I know in my network or people that have worked with me in the past. So that has been amazing. I've started dipping my toes into LinkedIn messaging and started playing around with ad creation. So that's going to be my next journey, I think, is to diving nose deep into that.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into these two, even though like not the ad, like not what's coming, but like LinkedIn messaging. Is that something you're currently doing?
Yes.
Okay, so how does that look like? Is it like reaching out to potential female leaders?
Yeah, I have a very large network and connection base at this point. And so it's utilizing that to connect with leaders, whether it's through my posts or DM messaging, making sure that they are thinking about their support team. What do they need to be successful? And then encouraging them to utilize those thoughts to add to their support team where they're needed. I can be a great addition, but there's tons of options out there. So my focus is just making sure that female leaders are first asking themselves, what do I need to be successful? And then fulfilling those needs.
I really like that. So a combination of content and DMs as well. Now, you are working with leaders, with female leaders. Do you also help their teams?
Yes. So I've worked with several different companies on full scale engagements, and that can look a couple different ways, whether that's an entire executive team or I also offer 360 reviews. What I found over and over is that typically senior leaders don't have a great way to collect authentic, blunt feedback on their own performances. And so with the 360 reviews, I'm meeting individually with people from their team to get that feedback. And oftentimes those conversations lead into other engagements. I just had an example the other day. I was doing a 360 review for a CTO, and I was meeting with one of his team members, and she was saying, I think coaching might be something I want to look into. And so we've been continuing that conversation. And I think she might be joining as a client soon. So that's often another avenue to just, again, get the information out there and then make sure I can be supportive to those leaders that need it.
Cool. And so right now, basically, you are growing your mastermind, growing your one-on-one and your exclusive community. What are your goals for the next 1 to 3 years? How does that look like? What are your goals? Could it be like growing in numbers, revenue, or any other type of growth?
Yeah. So my stretch goals for 3 years is to have a pretty large mastermind community. And my vision of it would be about 80 people. So there could be a lot of networking and best practice sharing. I find that, 10, 15 years ago when I was coming up in management, there was a lot more networking that was useful, that we could really pick up the phone and pick people's brains in our network. And that seems to have fallen by the wayside for a lot of people. And so really building that community up to be super useful and helpful is a huge goal of mine. I'd also love to have multiple different exclusive communities going so I can help a lot more leaders. And then eventually I'd love to lead up to retreats for leaders, week-long retreats so that they can really get away from the day-to-day, spend time reflecting, envisioning, and setting those hard goals so that they can rise to the level that we know they deserve to be at.
Cool. We also did retreats, by the way. We did one in Mexico this May. Mm-hmm. And we're thinking of doing another one coming soon in Phuket. So yeah, definitely I do see the value in doing that. So that is a very interesting goal to have. I think it's going to be very valuable for your coaching business as well.
Yeah, I find them to be so helpful.
Yeah. And yeah, that human interaction definitely beats the Zoom meetings, or maybe you feel like you get more out of it when you have also a group of people that you're doing this retreat with together, a group of people whose interests are aligned, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's also that intentional time away. I find that we all have our massive to-do list that we tend to get caught up with, but giving our brains that free space to really think and dream, I find to be really, really helpful.
Yeah, sometimes that feels like a luxury, right?
It is. In today's culture, it seems to be quite the luxury.
So what about investments? What have been some good investments that you've made in your coaching business that had a very good return on investment? Is there something like a coaching program, mastermind that you'd be part of, or maybe a community or something like that, or anything else that you've invested money on and you feel like, oh, that was very valuable?
Yeah, oddly enough, coaching. I have my own coach that I've been working with for the past 7 years. I had a business coach when I first launched to try to wrap my brain around all the different things I needed to have set up to feel like I was adequately ready to serve people. And the coaching has been the best investment I could have made because, again, it's that personalized hand holding. It's that person that's going to provide some accountability because as an entrepreneur, there is nobody looking over my shoulder asking, how are we making progress on these things? Or when something feels daunting, kind of taking that over. And that coach is really there to help hold you accountable in a really healthy way. So that's probably been the biggest investment I have made that's given me the most ROI.
And so you mentioned a business coach early on, and now it's a different type of coach. What type of coach is this?
Leadership coach. So making sure that I am healthy in the way that I'm showing up as a leader. Those boundaries that we draw, the healthy toolboxes that we have to keep up, managing stress, how we deal with anxiety. Those mindsets are so important. So again, we don't become our own obstacles.
And that's very interesting. It's also the type of people that you serve. Basically, yeah, you believe in coaching, and also people that work with you should believe in coaching. So it does make sense, right? Otherwise, why would someone trust in investing in coaching if the coach itself doesn't believe in coaching? So I really like that you're investing in coaching yourself. What about challenges? So what is the challenge right now that you're trying to solve for next? We kind of like light on it a little bit with ads, like something about ads or something else that is coming up?
Yeah, marketing is that final pillar for me that I'm really trying to master a bit more. I find that I am just not a natural salesperson. I am not a natural marketing person. I tend to focus on root causes, and that's usually not a hook. That's usually not a way to sell anything. And so trying to retrain my mind and get into that space and feel confident, that's really what I've set myself up for as a goal for the rest of this year. I made a lot of investments early on with different marketing and lead generation companies and learned the hard way that I have to know a little bit more, that I can't just trust another company to be able to run that and hands off. I need to make sure it's authentic. It feels like it aligns with me so that I feel really confident when a client comes to me through that channel.
Okay, cool. So basically, there has been also bad investments.
Lots of bad investments. I have made so many. I have learned so much throughout this process, but it has gotten a little expensive at times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Marketing is very tricky, especially if hands off, I would say is very difficult. No one knows your clients as well as you do. So it's very difficult to do hands off. And that's what we've seen as well. And marketing, to tell you the truth, is been a challenge for every coach that I've interviewed, or every coach that is also part of our community. Some of them have figured it out and focus more on hiring, etc. But marketing is always a challenge when you're thinking about scaling to a certain degree. So yeah, that makes sense. And what advice would you like to give to other coaches just like yourself who are trying to scale their impact?
Yeah, one of the things I learned the hard way, and I've seen a lot of people in my space also make the same mistakes, is not niching down. I think we all have the best of intentions. We want to help everybody everywhere. But if we can't niche down, then we're not going to be specific as to what pain points that we can help solve. So I resisted that for a really long time. I was leaders at large I could help. And I've realized that the more I can niche down and be super specific, the more excited I get to show up for my clients, the more value I see my clients put on our coaching container, the more serious they take it. And it's just easier to market to people when I'm very, very specific as to who those people are.
Yeah, they feel like, oh, this is exactly for me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Aleta. And for anyone who wants to connect with you or find you, they can go into your LinkedIn, Aleta Maxwell, and they'll be able to find you there. And there's also the website, upliftingleadership.com, where they can go and get more information around you. Is there any other place they can go to reach out to you?
Yeah, they can also email me at Aleta, Aleta, at upliftlead.com. I am very happy to offer all of your listeners a complimentary 45-minute strategy session where we can dig into their unique challenges, come up with an action plan for them so that they know exactly what steps they want to take next to reach their goals.
Well, thank you so much for coming. This was great.
Thank you so much for having me today.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This conversation was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. To learn more about Purple Circle, our community, and how we can help you grow your business, visit joinpurplecircle.com.